In this tutorial, I'm going to cover how to use Diffusion for SketchUp, which is SketchUp's AI tool that allows us to generate images from a screenshot of the 3D view in SketchUp. So you could be working on a model and choose a view. I have some scenes that I've preset here, and you'll select the scene or just go to the view that you're interested in. And you're going to send this view to Diffusion, which is an extension that SketchUp offers. So if you go to extensions, go to the extension warehouse, you can download Sketchup Diffusion. So you could search it here, bring it up, and once you install it, you'll see that you have an icon here for diffusion, and then if you go to extensions, you'll see diffusion in the drop down as well. So this gives us the ability to take whatever view is in SketchUp, bring it into the AI tool Diffusion. And so what we can do is add text that we would like to see as part of this prompt. So we can give it a style. So if you want it to be realistic, you can click on that, or if you want it to be more of a white model or an illustration, watercolor, there's different styles. So what I've spent the most time in is this exterior photorealistic tool. I think the development of this is still very much in the early stages, as they say here, and it's going to only get better with time to the point where you can do hyper realistic renderings with this. So what this allows us to do is, if you're designing a project and you want to see what this massing would look like in this view, maybe with a different material, so you can have that realized. You can also give it different backdrops and settings all through text. So it reduces the amount that we have to model when it comes to creating 2D images. So in describing the text, you want to avoid things like create an image that looks like X, right? You just need to describe the bare minimum of what you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to say contemporary home in valley with metal siding and wood soffit on a concrete slab. So it's going to read this and try to interpret how to apply that text and that screenshot to the images that it generates. And you also have control over the software's kind of weighing of the geometry versus how it's going to weigh the text. So prompt influence is how much it should weigh your text. Respecting the model geometry, keeping this at a high number will make it follow the lines and the massing of the image that you're giving it. Bringing this down will allow it a lot more freedom in interpreting this image. So it may come up with a different massing, but with this, these materials that I've given it. And there's also things that we can add to this if you want to add more descriptive text on the type of style or the image quality that you want to see. So they have some examples: raw photo, 8K. Those are ways of getting the AI to give you a more realistic looking image. So it's not going to be one of a low quality image. So we can say raw photo 8K. And I'm going to leave these as is for now, and we'll experiment and play with these sliders to see how those change the results. And so once you've chosen a scene, and again, to add scenes, go to View, Animation, Add Scene. That scene will show up here. I've already created this, so it's actually right there. So scene 14. If you've moved around, make sure to refresh the input. And so SketchUp's going to take this input image and it's going to use that in this diffusion model. So we just simply hit generate and it's going to take the prompt text, this screenshot, and it's going to generate 3 images of what it thinks that we're looking for. Or more realistically, it's going to take millions of images and essentially collage them into giving us results that might be applicable here. So you can see from this first image, and I've clicked on it and it comes up in the preview here. You can play with the size of this preview. It's interpreting the prompt. So we told it to give us a contemporary home with metal siding. So it has some maybe standing seam metal here. There's a concrete slab, there's concrete walls, and there's a wood soffit to some extent. So these are all different interpretations of that prompt, but it's trying to take this line work and trying to figure out what to do with it. So, sometimes it understands that this is a protrusion. This is actually a 3-dimensional slab coming at us, and then other times it interprets that line work in different ways. One thing that you can actually see that it's doing is these dashed projection lines are also working their way into this image prompt. So it's literally taking a screenshot of this. So how you prep the model is really important. The background you use, every line in this is going to matter. So one thing we want to do, because it was picking up on these dashed lines, those are guides. So I'm going to go to View and uncheck Guides. And I want to rerun this, and we'll see how it's no longer going to have that influence of the dashed lines. It'll probably even pick up this dimension line too. You can see that text might be what caused some of this. So I'm going to delete that dimension. Looking at this again, and then we can refresh the input view and then hit generate. So in a matter of seconds, it'll give us solutions that we can at least iterate on. Okay, so now we're getting much more kind of clean definition of that concrete slab. More examples of the wood soffit, metal siding. And so what it's essentially doing is it's looking at pixels and using, in all the images that it's seeing in its database, what pixels follow the, standing seam metal in this case, or corrugated metal siding. What types of shadows typically show up there. Here it's actually using the shadows of my scene because I have shadows turned on, so it's actually following those pretty closely. So it'll do its best to interpret what every line, every piece of geometry in your scene is actually doing. So these look pretty good. If we refresh this, going back to this, if I bring down the respect model geometry slider and hit generate, you'll see that it's going to come up with solutions that don't follow this exact massing. They're much more interpretive as far as the forms, and basically takes more liberties in coming up with some of these images. So you can see that these images are nothing like the massing that I gave it, yet they have some of the text that I was describing with concrete slab. There's a wood here, there's wood soffits here, it looks like. So a much more interpretive solution that it's coming up with. Refreshing this. Let's tell it to respect the model geometry a lot higher, and then have much less prompt influence. So here I expect this to be a lot more like my 3D model and less weight given to the text. And so this could be useful in a early stage of a project, schematic design stage, when you don't want to exhaust all the resources of doing a realistic rendering, but you may just want to show kind of sketch ideas of how materiality could work or how massing could show up on a given context. So now we're seeing a lot more weight given to the geometry. There isn't much interpretation going on. It's pretty objective as far as the geometry. There's kind of a one-to-one relationship here. So bringing the prompt influence down, respecting the geometry a lot higher. Let's see what happens when we play with this some more. So let's try using a different style. So if we go with illustration, we'll say respect the model geometry, prompt influence. And then in the text, we'll add a couple things here. We can try using paper cutout, flat textures, and see how that changes the output. And like I said, these tests are a good way to expand your ideation process. You're looking at different options, iterations early on. Okay, so that one, a little bit more flat, so less realistic, but still not as much of an illustration as I would like. So maybe we say watercolor. And I'm going to pull up the prompt influence even more, bring this down to 0.9, and then see how that changes. So for example, if I wanted to come up with 30 different geometries, all kind of inspired from this, I could pull this slider down even further and see what other massing ideas it comes up with. Okay, so a little bit more cartoon-like. That's another term we could use. I'll pull this down. Maybe instead of illustration, we'll say watercolor. And yeah, keep this prompt influence. Let's turn that all the way up. Okay, so definitely more of a stylized image set. These images clearly have some watercolor influence, yet still somewhat realistic as far as shadows and lighting. So this will take some getting used to and finding text that is applicable here as well. So maybe I should remove some of these raw photo, 8K. That was probably influencing this. And the more you work with this, the more you'll realize certain words will trigger certain image types or even image geometry in the composition. Okay, so We can see some texture of the watercolor showing here. Maybe just the fact that I have textures showing up is influencing some of that. Right? It may not understand flat textures. It may just be thinking textures. Okay, so there's that. Maybe we can pencil sketch, cartoon, maybe we'll say ink drawing. You know, I could imagine this is a useful way to communicate to a client that this project is in its early stages as well. We often don't like to render in a hyper-realistic style because it shows completion. It shows that the project is more resolved than maybe it is early on. Okay, this is interesting. So not much of a pencil sketch here. Bring this down. Prompt influence. Instead of paper cutout, get rid of that. Add grayscale to this. Okay, so these are grayscale. Still not much of a pencil sketch. So this will take some getting used to. You can click on add scene and it'll actually bring this image into your SketchUp model. So if I hit add scene, I now have that image. It is two-dimensional, but still interesting. If you want to model over this or use this as a reference, that is possible within this. But as soon as I orbit, it goes away. So again, clicking on that new image will bring that back. You know, one thing, you know, you can play with, I could imagine kind of creating a collage of model making, you know. Modeling directly on top of the AI image. It's kind of an interesting idea. So that was with textures turned on. I'm going to go back to hiding my guides. And again, if you're happy with an image, you can hit save. And you can save that image to your desktop. So with that, you can save the image. I recommend saving many of these so that you can show progress, and you know, whether this is a client that you're presenting to, or if you just want to document your thought process and kind of show many iterations, this is a good way to approach design. I'll do one more test here and kind of bring down this respect model geometry. Let's try another style. Go to clay model. So here, you know, maybe the idea is that I want to look at different massing ideas and come up with new kind of formal ideas, new forms for the project. So I'm going to bring down this model geometry, bring down prompt influence to 9. Yeah, we'll keep that. And we should see a lot more liberties taken in interpreting the massing of this house. Okay, so yeah, different roof type. some general ideas of an overhang. Those kind of show up, but different angles, different massing, different building altogether. But, this could be one way of coming up with different ideas and experimenting along a design process. All right. Thanks for watching.